thing I mentioned when we went over arms is that I would talk a little bit about forearms once we got to hands. And so one of the biggest things is as I mentioned, there are a lot of extrinsic muscles to the hand up in the forearm. And so one thing that we see in the forearm is if one kind of nice let me go off John's for a second. Nice sort of like mechanical thing that happens. Mechanical. Is basically we have, and I'll just kind of cut that off. Sure, like that. This is just so we can trace, what the hand's doing. And so what I said before, I kind of vaguely hinted at this when we talked about arms. Basically, in the forearm, you have three main groups. You have flexors on the palm side, which when those contract, that pulls your fingers inward, to clench your fist. And on the what's called the dorsal side, on the back of your hand, these are your extenders. Those when those contract, they extend your fingers. And then you have the ridge muscles here. And so those kind of sit as almost this like third form, which for today I am just going to dig through my pencil box. We'll just look at flexors and extenders as red, ridge muscles as blue. And so what happens, you have this interesting mechanism through your forearm, which allows you to do this, right? This is in medical terms, this is supinate, this is pronate, and so those are the terms we use with that twist of the hand, and so that gives us much more dynamic movement, between essentially our elbow and our wrist. And so if we draw that, basically the ridge muscles here, they kind of cross the joint a little bit. This is a little overstated, but that's fine. And then if I draw another diagram, and so I'm going to keep the upper arm in the same position, and then I'm just going to flip this hand. And that's, that can pretty much go. That's, I don't know about this alignment here, but I'm going to pull those ridge muscles, and those are going to kind of follow the thumb. That's confusing. I'll just do this. Something like that. And I'm overstating a few things for clarity. But basically, and so, to kind of simplify that, what we can do is kind of the most important part is to basically find, like we were talking a few weeks ago with those epicondyles on the upper arm, You know, if I throw like a cylinder in here. And so just kind of basically find the orientation of that upper arm, and then box out that wrist. And basically, you know, from there, you can just kind of connect things, like if we're doing something like that. Let me get this sort of attachment here. Got a little Ninja Turtle hand going here. Just kidding. And then if we look at that again from the, let's do that from the outside. So this is a side view. Here's going to be deltoid. Here's biceps at the front, triceps at the back. Brachialis is in there somewhere. But again, here's that olecranon process. Here are the ridge muscles crossing. Yeah, and then we have like hand like this, and this is going to be pinky side. And so I'll color this in again. We've got ridge muscles, and then we'd see flexors on the underside here, extenders here, and then you have a little bit of a like, and I don't know if I have the angle quite right on that. Yeah, something like that. But you see this gap here in between my colors? Oh, shut up. You have what's called here the ulnar furrow, and that's basically one of these depressions that's associated with muscles attaching around the bone, and so you'll usually get kind of a line, at least a hint of a line there. So let's jump down to the hand, and to again try to kind of simplify things. Basically, if we're looking at the, basically elbow to fingertips, what we can do is, and I'm going to essentially redraw what was here. So if we have upper arm, forearm, and this is kind of a full side view. Let me redraw that. It's not working. I think I have a diagram here I can look at. Yes, there it is. Okay. And I'm just going to flip that. So basically we can cut the wrist here, and that's way too big. And then we have this sort of like 1, 2 is we can kind of put this space between, and then 3. And this is going to be that main, skipping today. So 1, 2, 3. And you can kind of separate out these forms, similar to how we were thinking about, with the torso. How we can say like, okay, 1 is rib cage, 2 will be like midsection, and then we come down here. 3 at the pelvis. And so, this can kind of help us to organize or at least like kind of pull out different forms and try to demystify what's happening with the figure. As far as some alignment notes for the hand, basically, if we take, if we look at the form to the wrist, we can take lines from the wrist and push them straight forward like this. And then we're going to kind of look at what comes off the side from there. So if I just draw a couple parallel lines, something like this, and then again, here's our 1, 2, 3. But that's not totally what we're talking about right now. Basically, what we can look at beyond these 2 parallel lines is, and this is dorsal top view. So we have pinky here, and basically we have this sort of form off to this side with the pinky. And then we'll have the form off this side with the thumb. Interesting, right? And so if I push that into 3 dimensions, basically, we come off, and this can go on forever. This will be my block for the wrist. Here's my block for the hand. And I'll do, this is dorsal side, so I'll say top. And then we can kind of bring off this sort of form here. This is for our thumb. And then we will have a little bit of that bone here. Not bone, muscle. And so this is our pinky mass. And then kind of coming off of there, so that's our kind of super boxy version. And then if we look at basically what is the palm, we can look at, and you'll see this in like, is Body Glove still a thing? That like surfing company. It's big in like I think the 80s and 90s. Anyway. Basically it was a logo with like a hand on it. And we could see some of these forms. So, if we're looking at the palm of the hand, we can kind of make this sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this sort of like funky pentagram. We can kind of point here in the middle, but I'm just making a note to myself that this is the thumb because I flipped this on Monday. But we can kind of look at this sort of like mass here, which is again that kind of pinky, one of the few muscles in the hand. It's a grouping that sits here. So we have this sort of form or pad, one here, and then one here for the thumb. Right, and again, if I kind of cut through here, push the that width of the wrist through. Basically, you have let's see if we come center off here, you'll have that second finger. And I'll narrow that in. And then 1, 2, 3. And then that pinky, and I'm actually going to kind of throw it off a little. Here. And I think I overstated that a little bit, but it's fine. One kind of useful thing that Will Weston teaches is I think he said no one taught him this. He just saw he saw it in someone's drawing. But basically basically with the thumb, you have this sort of stick, like the root of the thumb, and then the stick and an olive. So that's how we can kind of pull that out. Okay. All right. So let's look at feet. If we again, so similar to what I had up here, I shouldn't move that. We'll kind of start out the same way and look at some alignments. And so basically with the foot, if we can kind of section off into two main parts. We have basically the foot, and then we'll treat the toes separately. That's all I'm saying here. And so what we can do that's pretty helpful to look at the proportion there, and I'm just finding the middle here so I get these thirds right, is basically block this off into 3 rectangles. And so we have our toes up here. I'm missing one, but that's fine. And then we have the top here, which is that sort of you have the ball of the foot here, and the sort of pad here. And then if we cut in here, this is the arch of the foot, and then the heel sits here. And that's it. Just kidding. So if we project that into space, what we can do, I'm going to do a few different poses, and I'm just kind of making these up. But basically, again, you know, if we're kind of up, if we're up on the toes, basically we can kind of throw this into space. And say 1, 2, 3. And then these toes are going to come off the front like that. And then, if you'll recall, one thing I've been saying, I was saying in the first few weeks, is, you know, look at the foot almost like a pyramidal. Am I saying that right? Triangular prism. We'll use that. So if we're thinking about that general geometric shape for the foot, that works. And you'll see this in next week or the week after in your textbook work, where basically there's BAMS has this sort of similar process with this. And so basically, I'm gonna work this up a little bit, and then we're gonna come back over here. And so basically, what's happening there is we can say 1, 2, 1. You know, 1, 2, 3. And there's there's with a lot of these kind of processes, you know, there's real like anatomy behind it, right? And so if we build into that triangle, we have that heel bone, calcaneus here, and then the tarsals and metatarsals working this way, and then our toes. And then coming up off here is the ankle. And so basically what we can do, let me see if I can find mine. Yeah, it's off that one. It's off that one. We can basically slap like a, this is, I'm drawing that as like a, what would that be, like a trapezoidal prism, pretty much, here, right? And then to harken back to our triangular prism here, I'm just going to take this point and drop that down to the toe here, right? Boom, foot. Crazy, right? And then if I want to build off of that, I could have like, you know, ankle coming up here. That might be a bit of an overstatement. But then, you know, we don't always have to have robot feet. I can kind of round some things out. In here, this is where we'd have that arch of the foot. Right? So we have like back here, side here. One thing too that I'll go over in a minute, you know, similar to what we had going on in the hands, here, and here, we have some similar forms happening with the toes. And so with the pinky toe, you know, we could also say that does kind of sit off to the side. And so we have these sort of two side forms. We have pinky toe here, and then the heel does kind of sit off to the edge. And so if I flatten that foot back down, oh, I already have one here. We can again say like pinky toe here, heel here. And that way, you know, foot's usually kind of a smaller form, but you know, this gives us a nice opportunity to basically make more space through a small form. And so one thing you can do with that, let's see if I can see that specific. Nope. basically what we can do with that is, if we have like, if I use some like line weight here, basically in some certain instances, we can kind of set this form out front, right? And we'll have heel here. And then let the other kind of parts of the foot kind of sit back. And that's, I'm not communicating that very well. We'll need 3 toes here. And so basically, if we think about like drawing a box, with this kind of same idea, it's like, drawing the closer forms first, and letting the other forms kind of step back into space. And this kind of drops that a little bit. What else can we say about feet? One way, and people, many different people, have drawn feet in many different ways. One process that Randy Melick, one of my figure drawing teachers, would use is, basically if you think about like a flip-flop sandal. Here, basically what we have is that same one 3-section rectangle here, and then so we add the toes on the front, and then here we can add that triangular prism here. So that's just another way. I'm definitely more interested in building things, kind of flattening things out first and then applying some dimension. So that's why I start with like this idea with the triangle, because that way you're looking at more of a general shape first. Let's see. One thing that's really challenging when drawing feet is like seeing them from different angles, and so in that instance, to think back here, basically you'll want to draw from front to back, and so in kind of severe foreshortening, like if you're looking at the foot from the totally from the back, and you're kind of like looking down, and like the heel kind of overlaps the toes. Basically, you're just gonna want to look for more of the structure, and in that case, I'll usually start with like the heel first. So in that case, we have like kind of this pillar of the heel, and then maybe the heel comes up a little bit. We have that arch of the foot, and then in front of that we'll have the toes. Does everyone see that foot? Maybe. And I was very general about this. So if I throw like a shadow on there, and then if I flip that, and if we're looking at the foot from the front, maybe this will help kind of clarify that one. Basically, we kind of get this kind of ramp That's a good term for that. That's the term that people use a lot. That was skipping my mind. The sort of like ramp form here is coming down and out. And we have like little toe to the big toe. Something kind of like this. And then we'll see maybe, I don't know about from this position, but that sort of arch for the foot. And then the heel here. Alright, and the last view I'll draw is basically one of these from the front. So we can get some toe talk in here. So again, this sort of 3-section rectangle. And then bring our ramp down to the toes, like this. And then if we can kind of line up all the, for lack of a better term, toe knuckles here. You kind of see that as like a cylinder pushing through here. And then kind of flatten the toes out. Something like that. And then I usually, I can draw this too in a minute. But I'll usually kind of group all the little toes together. Yeah. And so, depending on the stance of the figure, if we look at the toes from the top, and toe shape definitely varies from person to person. But we can kind of look at like separating those out. Sometimes in extreme circumstances, like you'll see in, say, like Disney's Tarzan, they emphasize this a lot, where the pinky toe kind of splays out a lot to get more traction. And so you'll see that sometimes where we do, like here's the foot, here's big toe, here's those middle 3. Ooh, that was rough. And then that pinky toe comes off a lot. That's definitely overstated. So. All right. Any questions on hands and feet? Anything else you want to talk over? I'm going to stop this recording. What I did last class was I just took a picture and projected the picture.